Ohio State won the national championship.
Yeah.
Ohio State won the national championship. We were here, and we saw it, and it really, truly happened. Urban Meyer and the Buckeyes, and it wasn't even that difficult. They turned it over 4 times. They gave the ball away, and they doubled Oregon's score. This is the highest flying offense in modern college football. They scored 20 points. I didn't think the Heisman winner looked that good.
No.
Doug Maurice, Ari Wasserman, Bill Landis, we are national championship beat writers. Dude, are we at that level?
Is my hair on fleek, Bill?
We're not. I don't even know what fleek means. So that's the season. 14-1 for the Buckeyes. Either the 6th or the 8th national title in program history, depending how you look at it. We know what happened. Why did this happen? How did this happen? Bill, what is your reason, not just in this game against Oregon on Monday night here at AT&T Stadium at Jerry World, but overall this whole season, how and why was this a national championship team at Ohio State?
I'll talk about the big guys again for the last time, I guess, this year. I'll start with the defensive line. What people thought would be the strong point of this team coming into the season, I don't think really showed that early on, and losing a guy like Noah Spence certainly throws a wrench in the works, and you got to work in Steve Miller, and you got to work in Rashad Frazier, and I mean, those two guys playing, I mean, there's a noticeable drop-off from a talent like Noah Spence, but I don't think there was a huge drop-off from Steve Miller and Rashad Frazier playing, so those two guys coming in and stepping up for the defensive line. Michael Bennett moving over to 3 technique and really exploding in the second half of the season, making some crazy plays. The defensive line just progressing throughout the year, but most importantly, I think, was the offensive line. The group that was the biggest question mark coming into the season. It looked terrible against Navy, looked terrible against Virginia Tech, and looked shaky at points after that, but continually got better throughout the season. Taylor Decker really led that group. Billy Price, a redshirt freshman who switched positions, played really well toward the end of the year. Jacoby Bourne, a guy who everyone says is undersized, really took over and ran things for the front of that line. And then Darryl Baldwin and Pat Elflein played great as well and kind of established the run game we saw here today against Oregon and we saw in the last 3 games with Ezekiel Elliott. So the offensive line for me is probably the biggest reason that Ohio State is national champion.
And really with athletes there. You didn't even mention Joey Bosa. That guy's a freak. I mean, he's obvious, but, Taylor Decker, Michael Bennett, Billy Price, Joey Bosa, Adolphus Washington, these guys are seemingly as athletic as any lineman out there. Ari Wasserman, why did Ohio State become a national championship team?
Is Ezekiel Elliott better than Carlos Hyde? You didn't even laugh. Think about if I would have asked you that a few months ago. You might have looked at me like I was an idiot.
I remember like week 7 or 8 when everybody was talking about the great backs in the Big Ten, and Urban Meyer's kind of like, well, I like my guy. And I was like, yeah, your guy's fine.
Yeah, no, he's cool. But, not... He legitimately in the
Is he better than Melvin Gordon?
Yeah, legitimately in the last 3 games, rushed for almost 700 yards.
Against good teams.
He almost didn't come here because he and his father were afraid that Urban Meyer's offense did not have the capability or the potential to have a 1,000-yard back, and he rushed for almost 700 yards in the last 3 games in the Big Ten championship game, the college football playoff semifinal against Alabama, and in the national title game where he completely took over. And I think the funniest thing that we talk about when you go back to last year when we were around is how is Ohio State going to replace that offensive line? How are they going to get back to the point where they're competing for a national championship when they lose Carlos Hyde? They were more dominant in the last 3 games on the ground than Carlos Hyde ever was. And I'm not trying to take anything away from Carlos Hyde.
But listen, and it's not just, I don't know that not every back would have done that, even with the line playing well. Ezekiel Elliott did things himself that not every back would have done.
Yeah, he was cutting well, and he's explosive when he makes the cut. He's fast, he's not easy to grab, and he's powerful. And I think you could talk about we can't get through the entire video without talking about the quarterback, so I'll mention it a little bit. The reason why the quarterbacks are so good is because it's easier to be the quarterback when your running back's rushing for almost 250 yards a game. So I think that Ezekiel Elliott, somebody who I think we agreed upon was average maybe at the first half of the year, maybe had something to do with his wrist injury, who knows, morphing into one of the best players on the team, and you'll get into this about the athleticism across the board of how Urban Meyer recruits, but having one of the best players in college football running the ball certainly was the catalyst for what I think Ohio State's offense needed to overcome the biggest issue that they had, which was replacing 2 quarterbacks.
So Ohio State, I think in the end, this is the thing that I am stunned by, is facing Alabama in the Sugar Bowl and facing Oregon in the national championship game. Ohio State looked like it had better players. They just had better players. It's like, Devin Smith is a good receiver, and it's like, well, he's as dangerous as anybody in either of those games. Ezekiel Elliott is dangerous as any. Joey Bosa. I didn't see Joey Bosa out there on any of these teams. Darren Lee's running around. You don't see Darren Lee, a linebacker like that, on Oregon or Alabama necessarily. Urban Meyer and this coaching staff is recruiting and developing talent as well as anybody in the country. And 3 years in, it's already showing up. And it's going to keep going up from here. This is a good senior class. It wasn't a huge senior class. It had some attrition. But guys like Michael Bennett and Duran Grant, who I think really stepped up and had a really good year. Curtis Grant was a great leader. The receivers, Evan Spencer and Devin Smith, did their jobs. Jeff Hireman, we know, was a great leader. It wasn't a dominant senior class. It was a good senior class. But this is a young team. There were some holes they had to fill on the offensive line, turning defensive guys into linemen, relying on an undersized center because they had some misses in recruiting, because they had some weird stuff. They're going to be rolling now. They're just going to fill those spots. And if Ohio State could be a national champion in a year like this on its third quarterback with some older classes that had some issues just because of what was going on with Jim Tressel and Luke Fickell when they were coming in, what's ahead? What's ahead when every recruiting class is going to be like this second-year class with Von Bell and Ezekiel Elliott and J.T. Barrett and Joey Bosa? And the guys who were freshmen this year, most of whom didn't play, they think they're better than that class. And now they're bringing in the 2015 class, and they got to recruit for 2016 in the middle of the game.
I asked Darren Lee about this, not to interrupt you, but he said, you thought we were good? We have some players that you haven't seen anything from yet that are really good. And then he kind of winked at me. Let's not forget how good the 2014 class was. They could be like the super sophomores that they were this year, and it's going to continue to happen. You had to steal my thunder with the recruiting. I don't hate you for it. But, that's real. 2014's class was really good, too.
So, I don't think we want to overstate it. I think as good as this team has been, it's easy to overstate things and say Urban Meyer did the greatest coaching job in the history of college football, or this is the closest team in the history of college football, or this team overcame the most adversity in the history of college football. I know nobody off the top of their head can name a team that won a national championship with a third-string quarterback. Let's not go too far. I think it's good enough to say this was an incredible year. This was a team that had some problems, that fixed those problems, has a lot of talent, has an excellent coach, has a national championship in his pocket, and has a very, very bright future. Mm-hmm. So that's it. One signing day. You don't know.
I do. It's in February.
It's in February. First Wednesday, first day. It's the 4th, I think. First Feb. It's not, because I'm going to Disney World 2 days after.
It is the 4th.
I'm going on the 6th.
I'm going to.
It's
Vegas.
on the
It's more
4th.
important than you.
February 4th is signing day. We'll have all kinds of coverage. There'll probably be a parade. I don't know. They won the national championship. People will be excited. We're going to keep writing. But thank you for following along all year for this national championship year with your national championship beat writers. He's Ari Wasserman. He's Bill Landis. I'm flying out tomorrow. What time are you guys leaving?
We're not.
We're not leaving.
What are you guys doing?
Ari and I are going to conquer the South.
That's right. You're going to take a week to drive home and drive through the entire South gathering interesting stories. Is that right?
There might be stuff about recruiting in there.
So people are not done with you guys. I left the window open in the back seat of their rental car and the seat got wet. So I hope it's not moldy on your drive.
I had to sit on it.
So look for these guys. We'll be tracking them through Texas, Louisiana, Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, Kentucky, and all the way back to Columbus. I'm just going home to see if there's a celebration. So I'm Doug Maurice. He's Ari Wasserman. He's Bill Landis. Thanks again for watching all season here at cleveland.com. One more time from Jerry World, Ohio State, your national championship football team.